Hi, Jessica here, Yoga for Everybody, representing Zen Active Sports, here to present one of my favorite yoga poses, the pigeon pose. So to make our way safely to the pigeon pose, we're going to want to start from a hands and knees position, aligning the joints so that the fingers and the wrists are directly below the shoulders and the knees are directly below the hips. Then we will move one knee in between the hands. So I'm going to start with my right knee. I'm going to bring it up in between my hands and then I'm going to start to straighten out this back leg. Okay, so then you might want to adjust the hands so those wrists stay below the shoulders, a little bend in the elbows. And you can experiment with the angle that this leg is at. So obviously, if you have a 90-degree angle in that front knee, it's going to be much more of a challenging pose than if the knee was bent in this angle. Okay, so you can experiment with the space between, 90 degrees and right up next to the body and see what angle feels best for your body. Okay. Now you'll notice a tendency to drop the hip. Okay, so since we have this right knee forward, there's going to be a tendency for this right hip to drop down and rest on the mat. This is not what we want. We always want the hips to stay in alignment with the shoulders. And so that means no slagging. So we're going to use the strength of our core muscles, beginning with the pelvic floor and the Kegel muscles, contracting those, the abdomen, of course, the obliques. They're all working here to keep the hips squared forward. And if that feels good, we could come down to the forearms. So we'll bring the forearms to the mat, fingers facing away from the body, the wrists are in alignment with the elbows, and then the elbows are directly below the shoulders. Okay? And again, paying special attention to those hips, making sure that we're not slagging down, but that we're upright with the hips squared forward. And if we do choose to come down to the forearms, we have to also pay attention to our form and the upper body as well. So we want the shoulders down, away from the ears. Chest is open. A little smile on the face, of course, always helps. Relax the muscles, enabling the body to delve deeper into the pose with each exhale of the breath. If we're feeling really flexible today, we could try coming all the way down. So we could bring the forehead to the mat. After 7 to 9 deep breaths, we can start to come out of the pose, first by lifting the forehead up, slowly bringing the hands back underneath the shoulders, and then we can switch sides by transitioning, let's go to just the child's pose. So I guess we could curl the back toes under so then we can lift that left leg up off the mat to give us more space to bring that right foot back. And then we can hang out in the child's pose before we transition to pigeon on the other side. So for child's pose, I have my knees hip width apart, arms extended forward, and then the forehead will slowly drop to the mat. Always feeling free to practice these poses for however long it feels good. And whenever you're ready to move on, we can transition to the pigeon pose on the left side. So this time we'll bring the left knee forward in between the hands. And then we'll slowly extend the right leg straight back, adjusting the hands as well so those wrists are directly below the shoulders. And paying attention again to the hips. We want them to stay squared forward, no slumping. And if this feels good and you want to just stay here, something that might also feel good is to add a little cushion under the hip. So we could put our blankets underneath the glute to add more support and keep the hips in alignment and squared forward. So that's a nice little option, if that feels good. And again, we have that option to come down onto the forearms and then gradually all the way down to the mat if that feels good. Another option that we have in the pigeon pose is to bend the back knee and then grab a hold of that with the right hand. Okay, now this is very challenging. I've been practicing this pose for 12 years, and this is really opening this right hip. It's really elongating the hamstring muscle. The hip flexors are going to have to be really loose to be able to settle into that king pigeon. Okay, and then some people can also bring the left arm up and touch the fingertips to the left or the right foot. I do not have that flexibility in my shoulders, unfortunately. But if you do have really open shoulders, you can try bringing that left hand up, bending the elbow, and then reaching to that right toe. And I wish I could show you guys what that looks like. But again, I don't have the flexibility in the shoulders, and that's really due to a little curve that I have in my thoracic spine. Throws off my shoulder blades. It's a whole process. A whole nother story. But, so, I wanted to present that option to you guys, just in case that's where you're at in your practice. And, certainly feel free to try it on the other side. Maybe it'll be easier on the other side. Okay, it's not for me. But, so this is what I do in my practice. I just grab a hold of the ankle, and that really helps open the chest. It's a wonderful option for those of us who aren't quite ready for the full extent of that king pigeon pose. Okay. And then let's go ahead and go back to the child's pose. And you know, a nice option for child's pose is to add a little cushion under the glute. And then we could also elevate the level of the floor with a block. So instead of having to hinge all the way down, we could instead first inhale up and exhale, hinging nice and slowly to bring the forehead to the block. So that's a nice little option that we have to modify the child's pose. And when we're ready to come out of the pose, we just slowly come back up to seated position on the mat. Thanks for practicing the pigeon pose with me here on Zen Active Sports. Stay tuned next time for another video and more tips. Thanks again for practicing with me. Namaste.